Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and such a bright and shining staff we got sitting here and everything, and you know you're looking over your shoulder. Welcome to the Vision Committee for this evening. So would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Dennehy?
Here.
Councilmember Maloney?
Here.
Councilmember Schmischer?
Here.
Councilmember Stein? Absent. Councilmember Tracy?
Here.
Councilmember Worthington? Absent. Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Here.
Mayor Troutman?
Here. Emily, smile. You're on camera.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Okay, sure. Okay, Ryan, should we start with what we're doing this evening, or do we want to start with Tammy, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, I can
Why don't you
start.
go ahead?
I can go ahead and start. At the City Council retreat earlier this year, Council had a request to have a little bit more insight into the budget before you get your budget books in October, and that is what we're doing tonight. We've got all the funding requests from the various departments. I do want to preface that this is in a very raw form. Usually we have 2 months to put all this together, so you're going to be seeing a lot of raw data. You're going to see where we are compared from a request standpoint compared to where we need to be from a reserve standpoint. There's a lot of decisions that we typically make before council sees that finished budget book. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tammy Nordyke, our Finance Director, and she is going to go through both revenues and budget requests, and we will go ahead and get started.
Good evening. So this evening, when we discuss the budget requests, we will not be going over every single fund. We will be hitting the majority, the major funds. So we will discuss general fund, parks improvement fund, quality of life fund, water, and stormwater. So the other funds typically do not have as big of requests, and they are, you know, the donation funds and such that are easier to, they maintain themselves, let's say. So the 2025 budget, in all of our funds, we have a 3% merit pool. We have a 3% cost of living adjustment. We also have an increase in our health insurance premiums of 3%. And all vacancies and any new positions are funded at midpoint with full family benefits. So when you see the costs of the new personnel requests, keep all of that in mind. We're not actually paying somebody that amount. That includes the full burden taxes and everything. We will start with general fund. I also put some history up there for you. So our 2023 audited revenues for general fund came in at $17.7 million. Our 2024 budget is $18.1 million, and our requested budget for 2025 is $18.4 million. That is the revenue that we do have to work with. Ryan and I went over the revenue, and we got it as tight as we could to get it as close as we could to where we really think that we will be. Our grants are going to be the one-time revenues, and then donations, of course, are also some one-time revenues. So that's, I think, a little bit different than what you've seen in the past. We kind of broke out our categories a little bit more, so you have some detail on that.
Before you go on, Brandon, would you please move the text box so that we can see the totals?
I don't think I can move the caption box.
that okay with everybody? I would really like to see the totals.
That would be fine with me. Is that a necessity for some odd reason? Maybe because, so,
I think it's an EDA accommodation.
We've moved it
Do
around
you-
before, though, I know.
Oh,
Haven't
okay.
we moved it around before?
Would,
no, apparently we can't.
Yeah.
Ryan, I think Butch has a copy of the complete presentation, correct? Do we want to?
Would you mind making copies for the council members, please? Or Leo, somebody?
We'd like, we don't see where the grand total is.
Yep.
The transfers, and so if we could just get that. So we're okay, Brandon, thank you.
Okay, well, yeah, so if you want to, we'll just pause for a moment while they go ahead and get some
Yeah,
copies
we'll need to do
made
that,
for
because
you.
I'm gonna ask them to commit all this to memory. It's just not.
And then the quiz.
And then there will be a quiz.
That's, yeah, huh.
Could I
So-
ask about the change in projection for the Royal Gorge Bridge revenue? It looks like we're projecting kind of where we came in at the 2023 audited, but significantly higher than what we had in the '24 budget?
So our overall Royal Gorge revenue is the same as what the 2024 budget is. It's just allocated differently. So you will see that general fund has approximately 100
Almost 200,000 more.
almost 200,000 more. And then when you look at Parks Fund, you'll see that it's remaining stable. And then quality of life, we reduced that one down by the 200,000. At this point, we have not heard from the bridge as to what they're anticipating their revenue at. And so that's why we went ahead and plugged that number in at our 2024 budget, because we're confident, well, we're pretty sure that we're going to come in close to what our budget is.
They
on
usually
that.
start their budgeting process about mid-September, so we have a little bit firmer number by the time we have our October budget book.
So there are other pages we're not seeing, because we don't, show me where quality of life fund, what is,
No, we'll
we
get
have more
there.
pages.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, okay.
I think we have 27 or 28 slides.
Well, I thought we were getting away easy with one, but then
No,
we got some more
no,
stuff.
no.
No, okay.
You know, you have to see all the numbers. So.
Just, I know it's not a big number, but donations, do people give the city dollar amounts of stuff, or is that an asset that we would liquidate? Is that just a number?
No, we actually do get donations. A lot of that does go into the police department for,
Okay.
like, the Shop with the Cop, that
Okay.
is considered donation.
The library and museum also.
Okay.
Mhm. And then, yeah, Members Benefit Fund, the K-9 program, and so we classify that as
Well,
donation.
that makes sense. Okay, sure.
So while we're kind of paused here a little bit, Tammy, maybe you could talk a little bit about the grants. You know, it seems to me that, I know that Dave Reynolds is the treasurer for FEDC, and grant income and accounting for that just about drives him over the edge. And part of the problem is because sometimes you've got to spend money to get that money. And also in those numbers are, it drives a lot of staff time. And so it gets really tricky in the accounting of it. And plus, when you're trying to do it on a live basis, sometimes it's a reimbursed grant, and sometimes it's a upfront grant that you have to then account for later, things like that. So could you talk to us a little bit about the grant amount? Or how about this question? How much does the $1.4 million in grant income that we're going to get force us to spend ourselves? How much are we going to have to match of that?
It varies by grant. We
Sure.
do have some grants in, let's say, the police department that are 100% funded by the grant. That would be such as our bulletproof vests. I think the Lexapol, which is under our post grant, those are 100%. So if our cost is $6,000, our grant is $6,000. On our COPS hiring grant, we have $125,000 over the course of 3 years per officer, but when you look at that, we're spending more than what that would be per year.
Sure.
So that one doesn't, you can't say that that is a 25% match or a 50% match on ours, because it's going to vary even by the officer, depending on what benefits and such are on that. And then our CDOT grants and stuff, most of those require a, 5-10%?
They range
Yeah.
anywhere from 10 to 25% match typically.
So I understand, and I understand that I'm talking with a professional here that takes a lot of pride in making sure her accounting numbers are correct. But can you give us some by guess and by golly maybe numbers about what that's running us? Well, how much do we have to spend to get that 1.4 million bucks?
So, and I did not bring that breakdown with me, but we actually do have it broke down in our budget by category. I did not provide tonight the category totals. Like, I didn't give you the total for personnel, I didn't give you operating expenses, or what it was for the grants. I can get that number and send that back out. I can provide it to City Administrator Stevens and then provide that to you.
So here's a suggestion, if you've got that number, I think that sometimes the gory details can hide or obscure what the important things for council members are. Could you maybe just put a star by that 1.4 million, and then in a footnote say, approximately it looks like we're going to have to spend, and you can break that up a little bit, maybe perhaps in staff time, but we're going to have to spend hard dollars for sure, and maybe give us an idea of what that is or something.
Yeah,
But
and
we have a grant writer on staff, right?
correct.
So that would be in personnel, and if that person, I would see it, if I was doing it and they worked for Parks and Rec to get a grant, that portion of their income or usage would be attributed to intergovernmental. Is that close?
No.
Okay.
So
Tried.
the grant revenue that you are seeing is what we are anticipated to receive as reimbursements for our costs that we incur for those grants directly. Some of the grants allow us to recoup indirect costs, which would be our personnel time. Most of them do not. And so the costs of administering those grants, we have not tracked in, let's say, finance. I have not said, okay, how much time does Mary Pat take in submitting the request for reimbursement and the quarterly reporting, and I have not received, I have not asked the chief to provide how much staff time that his staff have provided for that, or even Leo for his staff time, that when they're out there checking on the projects and such.
And that would be their call, and they're the professionals, they would evaluate that, I would think, before they start down that road to attempting to get that grant, so we'd leave that up to them, and I think that's appropriate.
Correct.
We can continue now that we have the
Okay.
paperwork.
I know. Okay, so am I okay to move off the revenue page? All right. The next page that we'll discuss are the expenses for general fund. And I did break these up by our categories. So general government includes the city council, city clerk, finance, basically any of our administration or administrative departments are considered part of general government. Public safety is the police department. Public works is going to include fleet, streets, and engineering in the general fund. Facilities is considered part of general government. The culture and recreation includes museum and the library. And then there's also one capital or one expense item for parks that is accounted for in general fund. The street projects are, we will identify those separately on a future slide. And then we also have our all other capital includes vehicles and repairs to buildings and such. So our 2023 audited expenses were 17.8 million. Our 2024 budget was 26 million. Our requested budget for 2025 is 27.4 million. So now you know what our revenue is and our expenses are. Now you get to see what it's doing to our fund balance. This is where we start to see what we need to be cutting. Our fund balance policy says that we need to have our unassigned fund balance percentage of operating expenses at a minimum of 20% to 30%. Right now, general fund is sitting at 12.04%. If the budget were to be adopted as requested by the departments. So we have at least $1.5 million in cuts that we need to do.
Is there any requirement for a percentage and amount to be held in reserves? Or is that two different things?
Yeah, there's a state requirement, but our financial policy goes well above the state requirements. That was something that was adopted by council in 2016.
2016.
So, setting that reserve policy between, is it 20% or 20.5%?
It's like 20 point, we'll just say 20.5.
Yeah, 20.5% and 30%. So every year when Tammy and I receive all the budget requests from all the departments, our goal is to get somewhere in between that 20.5% and 30%. Usually we like to be a little bit closer to the middle, 23-25%, just to make sure that we have enough operating reserves if there is a catastrophe of some kind.
Okay.
So we're, another way to, is it fair to say another way to look at this is that between our expenses and our income, we've got a $9 million deficit right now, which is the way that we would account for this is draw down the general fund. Is that, do I have that?
To
Draw
draw
down the
down the
reserve.
reserves.
The reserve.
And we do have in our reserves funds that we can use towards capital. And that is typically what the city has done is when we have those capital items, we try to use reserves to help fund those.
So with, as Tammy said, with the current operating expense or the reserve at 12.04%, there's about $1.5 million that would have to be cut from the budget request just to get us to that minimum operating reserve that was set by policy.
Only $1.5 million?
That's, yeah. So did have some requests for personnel changes in the 2025 budget. HR requested a human resources specialist. Finance is looking at a reorganization. Police department is requesting a deputy chief. They're requesting to convert a part-time employee to full-time and to add a part-time administrative assistant too. And then engineering is asking to add an administrative clerk 1. Currently, the requested budget does include the replacement for the fleet facilities manager. With the addition of the admin clerk 1, this position would be removed from the budget, and that would remove approximately $140,000 from personnel expenses. So there would be about a $60,000 difference between the two, but I do have both positions included in the requested.
Could you speak a little bit more about these personnel requests and kind of what the vision is and why they're needed?
Yeah, so for the one that Tammy just mentioned, with Jim Johnson announcing his retirement, looking at that function and whether or not different portions of that job could be absorbed by other departments, as well as the administrative load on some of those departments, adding administrative clerks, both to human resources and to engineering, would help offset some of the paperwork that Jim was doing, as well as take on some of the paperwork that some of the superintendents and department head and Leo are currently taking on. That position, the fleet and facilities manager, is also the safety officer and also files a lot of our insurance claims. So we see a lot of that function of those functions going to the HR departments, which seems to be an appropriate change, but that again puts a little bit more burden on Butch's team. So by removing that one position and reallocating, reorganizing a little bit, I think it's going to make for a little bit more efficient operation. Chief, do you want to talk about your positions?
Yes, sir. The first position that we are looking at, the deputy chief position, has been vacant for some time.
Chief, do you mind using the microphone, please? Thank you.
I got dual mics now. Can you hear me okay? So the deputy chief position has been a vacant position for some time. Of course, I'm sure council's aware, succession planning is a very professional path to take for every organization. I think it's important for the organization to know who's in charge when the head guy, the director, the department head, the chief is not there. And it's an opportunity that I have missed out on the last 3.5 years to mentor somebody. And I've said this to council and Mr. Stevens since day one. My goal is to have it known who would be Canyon City's next police chief, should, God forbid, anything ever happen to me, or when I choose to retire or council chooses to retire me. I think that's important. It's important for the community, it's important for the personnel, and right now we're missing that. I do have a particular commander that I reference as number 2, but he is consumed with his professional standards duties, and there is no light at the end of the day for us to truly mentor and for me to start grooming him to take the helm should something occur that would require that. The other positions, the part-time to full-time, and I'll be happy to share the data with you, but with the legislative changes regarding body-worn cameras, with our increased capacity to capture relevant and critical evidence in the event of high-risk situations, We installed dash cameras in all of our cars. So you accompany the dash cams and the body cams. We have increased the workload of our digital evidence technicians 500%. Now, that is part and parcel on the amount of data that they're receiving for both body-worn cameras and dash cams, all of the reconciliation that has to occur daily with those records to maintain our file system appropriately in terms of case management. That workload has, as I said, increased substantially. Our records requests have went up. The time that it takes them to process these things to make them legally available and compliant has increased, considerably, commensurate to the amount of body cameras that we have. We've seen increases in those requests, the redaction time, and all of those things. I'll make a long story short, my two digital evidence technicians, Ms. Kim Wilson and Courtney McAvoy, they are unable to take off because of the significance of the workload. They are our last line of defense in terms of not having discovery issues in court. So these are very critical positions, and I am so thankful for them because they keep the engines turning, the wheels on the track, so to speak. So I would be glad to share that data with you. It is significant to see the workload that they bear each and every day. The last position that we are looking at, an administrative assistant in a part-time capacity, and I know Councilwoman Schmischer has shared this endeavor. The police department would like very much to pursue our accreditation at the state level, and we have tried diligently to do that in the status that we're at with the commanders that I have in place. Ultimately, this falls to Commander Bell as the professional standards commander. But as I indicated when we talked about the deputy chief position, he has absolutely no time in his day to begin the process of reconciling our policy standards and the state's accreditation standards to set us up for an assessment to obtain that accreditation. That accreditation is an important process for us to have in terms of credibility to the agency, and that becomes a recruitment tool. That becomes a retention tool. Folks want to be associated with professional organizations, and that's a stamp that's pretty important in that endeavor. So that part-time person would have a sole focus to look at policy, to look at accreditation standards, see where we need work, see what policies need to be adjusted, produce the check-off list, if you will, matching all of those standards to our policies and making sure that we have the proof of compliance to substantiate our applications. Those are the three positions that we're asking for. I'm sorry if I took the long way around the barn. I wanted council to have a good idea what we were trying to do.
So Chief, help me out here. I thought in our combined regional communication authority meetings, we were talking about having the evidence technicians or making the body cam footage or tape available to the DAs so that we no longer had to process that. What am I thinking about there?
Well, I think it's a little bit of apples and oranges. So CRCA and our folks are trying to determine what the path will be for people that make requests to CRCA for records that they possess. Thank you, Butch. So that's a little different than what we are talking about in terms of reconciling our body-worn cameras to our reports in terms of case management. And one of the big things that has increased that workload since we've switched to Tyler, our new records management system, we thought when we had Omnigo as our records management system. We were absolutely excited when we purchased the Axon digital labeling feature that would automatically label our digital evidence appropriately to the appropriate case. Tyler's records management system identifying numbers is a little different. Their incident number, where Omnigo had an incident number for every call received by CRCA, and then we had a separate case number specific to a criminal component that we were investigating. Tyler has one unique number for every incident, and that is the case number. That has been problematic in our digital evidence technicians being able to reconcile those cases and make sure that the appropriate digital evidence is with each and every case. That has been a very big part of their upswing with the records, or I mean with the digital evidence reconciliation, because they literally have to go, despite that advanced labeling feature, because it just has one unique number. There's no way to reconcile that to follow-ups, case follow-ups on other cases. Every time you mark out on the radio, it creates a new incident, and that number is associated to the video. So they literally have to go in and look at each and every video and then reconcile the digital evidence to the cases. It is an absolute bear for them every day. And then every week they get purge lists that come out from Axon that tells them, you know, this is not assigned in a case capacity, and they have to review that to make sure we're not destroying something that we should be keeping.
Yes,
So
right.
it's an enormous lift. They are working tirelessly at developing protocols, because as unbelievable as this is, as critical a component as body-worn cameras have become with legislative mandates, you would think there's some advanced training features associated with that management process that we could send our people to. There is very little. So they are, in essence, creating their own workflows, leveraging things like Microsoft Teams and other software components internally to develop that and keep us on the forefront of moving forward and delivering that high level of service.
Is this going to be an ongoing issue with Tyler, or is it more of the conversion from, is it Omnigo to Tyler?
We're moving from Omnigo to Tyler, and the short answer to your question, Councilwoman, is yes, for now. All of the things that we've had problems with that were unanticipated, they are committed to making enterprise changes within the next 4 to 5 years.
Of
So
course.
in the interim, we gotta figure that path out our own.
It's interesting to me with this widespread use that Tyler has, that this appears to be new information to them, or they're just now making these enterprise changes?
I am equally shocked and surprised.
And the rules are changing. Rules are changing. And so that's part of it. But you're right to be skeptical, because the Tyler, I remember some of the Tyler presentations to us where they were bragging about how their unique number was assigned to everything, you know, and now from looking at it from the other side, that's not so great.
I suspect as we move forward with as large an industry as this is, and Tyler being a very large corporation within it, between Tyler and Axon, they're going to find a fix for that reconciliation component so that those body-worn cameras, dash cameras, all get assigned to the proper case. I would not be surprised to see a merger of sorts, one being bigger than the other, assuming them. It's a possibility. I don't know.
Just another thing to think about here, about rules changing. The recent legislation has removed some of the protections for individual police officers in carrying out their duties, where if they act outside policy, procedure, they can be personally liable and can be sued, and if they cannot pay, their entity pays.
Yes.
And that is now a reality. The first case of that, actually, 2 cases, were here in Fremont County with the jail, a jail problem, and the county was ordered to pay $50,000 to one individual and $50,000 to another individual for $100,000. Do we have any way to anticipate or create some type of contingency fund? I mean, the reason we have policies and procedures is so that we can have people that act within those guidelines. But people are people, and sometimes they make mistakes. And it appears to me to be quite likely that we're going to see that when the bad guys find out how easy it may be to get money out of cities and counties, that there's going to be a price tag that we have to. So that's you don't have to answer that tonight, but put that into your thinking banks. And I know that a lot of times, for instance, companies, if you're complying with a lot of regulations, environmental regulations, whatever, sometimes there are you get fines for getting outside the rules. Companies have always resisted creating a fund to cover prospective problems.
As part of our insurance, CIRSA was providing $25,000, wasn't it per officer for those
Yeah,
cases? And I
CIRSA
think
had
that
made an
is
announcement
still
a few years ago that they would cover
place.
those cases. I've not seen anything that's changed that policy. Yeah, so.
But there's a cap though?
They do the it was
They will
set at
cover the personal
25
liability
for
part of it.
25,000.
Yeah.
Up to 25.
Yes,
That would be per
Yeah.
officer.
per
Yeah.
officer.
I think that's a legislative cap, yeah.
Oh,
So they do have that.
Individually.
Yeah.
gotcha.
So we do have that covered under our current policy, and we can verify that that is still in there, but
Okay,
that's
thank you.
that's good to have, so
Yep.
that's a plus.
But they're not making it any easier for us to recruit and retain people.
Tammy, do you want to talk about your finance reorg?
So as part of.
Before we
Oh,
move on, can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
Can we go back to the expenses slide, because the 2024 budget numbers doesn't add up to 26 million?
Okay, hold on.
Or I might have missed something, and if I did, I
Let's
apologize.
see, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Good thing. I may have had a typo on that. I will look back at that and see what I have in there.
Because we did say the requested was about 1.5 million, but it's actually 2.5 or 3.5 million.
Yeah, I will make sure that I do not have anything that I missed in that. It's not showing on there.
You're saying the 24 budget doesn't total up correctly, is that correct? Okay, gotcha.
So as part of succession planning, right now, finance does not have a person that would be able to step up if I am no longer with the city, or when I'm no longer with the city. And so part of this reorganization would be to get a designated person in that second in command position, and then also looking at two positions that have changed significantly in their job duties. And so that's the reorganization. So it would impact potentially 3 positions within finance.
And Leo and Butch, I know I kind of gave a brief overview of those 2 additional positions. I don't know if either of you want to add anything to what I had mentioned earlier.
I think you did it pretty well. With Jim deciding to retire, we're looking to add an administrative assistant that would serve the public works functions within the general fund to take over the administrative duties that Jim did, as well as the administrative duties that I do in terms of just paying bills day to day, things like that, that could be better handled. And then we would in turn take on some of those duties that Jim had formerly been doing. So it's really reorganization. I think it plays into HR as well, as some of the things that Jim had been doing would be going to HR in terms of the safety. What was the other big one? Oh, insurance, CIRSA.
ADA coordination.
ADA coordination, yeah.
There's a natural fit, and a lot of the human resources offices around the state have already made that transition to where they have the safety and exposures, liability and things that have moved in as part of the HR function. And so there's a natural connection because we're already handling workers' comp through CIRSA, which is one of the two main programs they have. And we're already, as part of that, doing a lot of the training that's required for our annual audit and tracking other things. So it's a natural fit to bring it over to us as opposed to giving it to one of the other departments.
Is this an attempt, did I miss something, to eliminate what is essentially Jim's job right now, or to give, to what? And take, there would still be a director of whatever Jim did.
No, so, after Jim retires, this would be a reorganization, and, so those functions would fall on other people. Fleet management, he was our safety officer. He did the insurance claims for liability claims. Leo, you can help me out here. I know Jim does a lot of stuff, but it's really redistributing a lot of what he does, and then the fleets and it'd be the fleets and facilities personnel that previously reported to Jim would have different reporting. They'd report to somebody else.
Someone that would be housed up there where they're at?
We've talked about different things there, so we're still kind of working out some of those details.
Okay.
But that wouldn't be another new position. It would be a position within Public Works that already exists.
It would be the positions that are identified here.
No, the people they would report to would likely be Leo or,
Yes.
somebody that's already on staff, a position that's already on staff.
Okay. And is it essentially a budget neutral transition because you're adding these two positions to?
There's about a $40,000 or $60,000 additional cost to adding the two positions.
Okay.
One of the other benefits to having the admin assistant to do a lot of the, as Leo said, the financing, processing invoices and stuff that department heads are now doing, we're really paying them a lot of money to do something that an admin person could very easily do. So it's basically aligning the job duties more appropriately to a position.
It's about a delta of 31,000.
And, just to comment, in today's job market, replacing people going out to get someone that's in a senior position is not cheap.
That's very true.
Or easy.
So the next item is the capital equipment for general fund. Police has requested 4 patrol vehicles to be replaced, adding a co-response vehicle, replacing 4 staff vehicles, replacing 2 canine vehicles. IT is asking for a replacement of 1 vehicle, backup appliances. Streets Department is asking for it's a 3-axle, box trailer, and then they're also asking for a bucket lift service truck that would be used when they are hanging signs. And then under fleet, it did not have a detail, it just had $6,500 there. So that is the capital equipment that's being requested in general fund.
Are the backup appliances to replace existing appliances or to have redundancy?
Is Elijah back there? You're up, Elijah.
So specifically with that request, the backup appliances would be both a replacement for the existing, and we would shift the existing over to increase our redundancy. So we would not get rid of the existing, but we would replace them with new.
And what is it?
They're backup storage appliances for all of our enterprise backups with the data between every department and every server that we have. So we take snapshots of the existing server infrastructure, and we store those for a certain period of time at different locations throughout the city. Adding additional appliances would allow us to both increase the time that we retain that data, as well as diversify the types of media that we store that backup data on.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I'd have a question on, you have down here for patrol vehicles, didn't we lease those? Do we still put them on the books as a purchase even though they may be leased?
So our budget right now does not include financing any of the vehicles. Typically in the past, we have been doing the leasing of it just to finance it, to spread it over 5 years versus hitting it all in 1 year. And we have been doing that now since, was it 21? 22?
It was in the 20 budget, I believe.
So,
So
but
we've been doing it a few years.
Is this a cash outlay of 160 or is that the cost of the lease?
Right now, that is the cost of the vehicles. So that is the actual cost of the vehicles plus the upfitting. They're put in
Yeah.
right now at 40,000 for the patrol vehicles.
But your intent is not to cash buy them, you're gonna lease them.
Well, but so
Or not.
that's part of the budget magic that our administrator is gonna apply here. That we're seeing the raw requests from the departments for they're identifying a capital need. And then it's up to the administrator to say, well, we can do better by a lease, a 5-year lease rather than a $160,000 capital outlay or whatever.
So you're trying to sound like our administrator can pull a rabbit out of a hat.
Well, this is,
Okay, no,
we're talking about sausage making here, you know?
Okay?
I know council wanted to see, the budget
Sure.
requests.
Okay.
From an administration standpoint, I would not recommend funding 11 vehicles for the police department. No offense, chief. We would recommend funding, probably the co-response vehicle, one K-9 vehicle and one staff vehicle for this cycle.
And these, I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, but this is raw data. This is as it is now. There'll be some concerns and discussions on it in the future, so.
Yeah.
This may be what you call the worst-case scenario?
Yeah, this is their raw request. This
Okay.
is what they've requested. We have not gone through and cut anything. We did not put in financing to cover it.
Okay.
Even if we were to put in financing to help cover the cost of that, you also then need to add the expense of the lease payments.
Yeah.
So you're just spreading the cost a little bit different.
Okay.
So-
Go on.
And how do the departments determine which vehicles they're putting forward for replacement? Is it a standard formula based on mileage or based on repairs, or how do you make that determination?
Some of them are based on the age of the vehicle and how often it needs to be repaired. So I don't know if it's in this group, but I think you know, there, somewhere in here, we're replacing a vehicle from 1995 or 96.
Our baseline, by policy and industry standard, is 10 years or 100,000 miles.
Yeah. And when it comes to patrol vehicles, we look at that a little bit differently. It's, you know, because of safety factors.
Yes.
The capital improvements that have been requested in general fund include a garage expansion for the police department, the expansion of the impound lot for the police department, pedestrian bridge repairs. We did have them evaluated this year, and there's some repairs that were identified that need to be made. Facilities is requesting windows to be replaced at the police department, in the library, windows to be replaced, as well as the elevator. We do have the generator requested again, and again, we will only purchase the generator if we can get a grant. Elijah did hear about a grant that should help cover that, but the cycle does not open till after the first of the year. So we're hopeful that we can actually get a backup generator for City Hall.
As the city council liaison to the library board, it may be of interest, people have actually gotten stuck in the elevator at the library on more than one occasion due to its age and due to its interesting maintenance provided by the company.
The street projects that are funded out of general fund include our street resurfacing program, ditch crossings, miscellaneous concrete repairs, downtown alleys, and then parking lot resurfacing. The parking lot resurfacing had typically been shown in the facilities budget, but engineering would like to be the one to manage that, and so that's why we're now identifying it separately under the street projects, because we'll work in conjunction with the streets department for that.
Yeah, specifically because it can be bid as part of the resurfacing, street resurfacing projects, and you gain economies of scale. You don't have to mobilize more than once.
Is that the parking lot here at City Hall, or?
Some of those would be, you know, could be the parking lots over at New Method Laundry. Leo, I think you had a couple others that you had potentially identified.
Yeah, I think we're still doing our assessments, but the museum was one of the higher need ones that we had seen in the city. I think police department had a request that I have to go look at with Commander Leonard yet and make some notes on. But yeah, New Method was the bulk of what we proposed in that line item, and then I believe the museum, and I think the annex was the other one that needed some work at it. So.
And is I recall that in the past we've had trouble spending the ditch crossings line item. Do we have specific plans in mind?
So what the city has committed to the ditch companies in previous years is that they would add $200,000 to that every year. This year, we've been working on a project. We've, you know, there was some communication gaps or delays that pushed some of that. But we have a project that's currently working. I think Leo has a request that'll be coming to City Council at the next City Council meeting to buy some materials for an upcoming project. But we'll have to identify the next projects, you know, pretty quickly after that to spend all of it down. But the idea was, and I think the commitment the city made to the ditch companies was that fund would continue to build, and that line item would continue to build for bigger ditch crossing projects.
If the commitment was $200,000 a year, is there a reason why the request is $550,000 for 2025? I'm just trying to get a sense of if there's a particular need that we are seeing that needs to be addressed in 2025.
That would be $200,000 on top of whatever is left over from this year.
Got it.
And we're still working on shoring up some of those numbers with the request that Leo's making. So this was based off of the number that was submitted back at the end of July.
Some additional requests in general fund that we wanted to highlight. We do have the $55,000 in community agency funding budgeted or requested. We also have the Black Hills Energy pole assessment for $150,000. We do have funds set aside for PUC rate cases. And then we also do have the $160,000 in the police software for the e-citation and crash. This is if the CRCA board does not decide to fund it out of the grant funds that they have. And so we wanted to make sure that council was aware that those items are held in the requests.
Emily, we can't see the yellow hand because of there we go. But I noticed or I thought you might have a question or a comment on this one.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Oh, I mean, Amy. I wanted some clarification on the BHE poll assessment. Is that just being moved into the 2025 budget, not to be started in 2024? Just wanted some clarification.
Yeah, I think we're just identifying it here in the 2025 budget, not knowing whether or not it will be done in 2024 or not. I think council still needs to make that decision. But with the rate case now underway, we've got a lot going on with that too.
Right, thanks.
Just as an aside on that, have we signed the transfer documents yet for the Clark Station?
No.
Thank you.
With regard to kind of the additional requests within the general fund, I wanted to raise the issue that the downtown merchants and the conversations that the city has had with regard to ways to promote Main Street merchants with doing away with feather flags and bringing in banners. Would that be in a different section?
That would be in Rick's section that is in the general fund. I don't know that we have them specifically called out. They're probably under contracted services or professional services.
Yes, those are all listed out and will be listed out in contract services. We have, and as we mentioned in those meetings, we were thinking about a couple of these ideas already. We are looking at a mall directory signage program downtown. That could be, we've done some research on a couple of different signs. Could be a type of sign where it would be more of an interactive thing where businesses could have their QR code on the sign and people could open up an app, scan the QR code and be directed to the business, which would be kind of a cool thing. The signs themselves are $50,000 roughly for 4 of them. There'd be 4 electronic signs downtown. And then what I missed in my request actually is $30,000 for the software to run these. This would be software that we would control what is displayed on those signs. That was the cheaper of the 2 options that we've looked at so far for downtown directory signs. The banner signs, we've done some research on banner signs. We can get those up for about $5,000. I'm working on a new website right now, will be this year, I should say, provided I can work that into my budget this year, and I'm evaluating that right now, and it's looking pretty tight. And then working on a potential marketing plan. I met with KRDO initially on this plan. We've discovered that the marketing that's happening now for our community is not bringing people downtown in the summertime, which is really when we expect people to be here in the summertime. So marketing our own community and combining that with website and using some video promotion is probably going to be the most powerful way to do it. KRDO has submitted an estimate of $2,500 a month, so we're looking at $30,000 for that. And I'm evaluating locally whether we can do that or something similar to that with a local company who would be able to do basically the same thing that KRDO can do. It just wouldn't be on their network, so to speak. So we're looking at, with all of the downtown business conversations, we're looking at about $87,000 of additional if we go this direction. That's not including, because I didn't include it in the budget, $30,000 for the software. So there's quite a bit there. We can, of course, evaluate different types of directory signs downtown, but to get something that truly address their concerns, it's something that would help people get to their businesses. So we'd have to take a look at several different options there.
Is that 30,000 a year or 30,000?
$30,000 capital expense, excuse me, the software? I'm gonna have to check on that. No, it's not $30,000 a year. I'll check to make sure on that. The signage would be $50,000 flat. I think there'd be a maintenance charge, but I wasn't given a fee for the maintenance charge for the software.
Thank you.
Couple other things before you move on to the other fund. We've received the initial budget for CRCA. It's about a 20% increase. It's pretty substantial. It's over $100,000 increase for Canyon City's portion of CRCA. There's also an increase for Child Advocacy Center built into the budget. Humane Society is not asking for an increase this year. And I believe, Rick, you also have an increase in for the Chamber of Commerce? And we do have those agencies should be attending the September 4th meeting to talk about their budget requests for next year.
The chamber, the funding we provide them annually won't change for 2025 from what we understand. They've requested from us, though, if and when they get their new facility, they would like to add staffing, and that's another $15,000 addition to their request.
Thank you.
The next fund that we'll discuss is our Parks Improvement Fund. Our 2023 revenue came in at $2.3 million. Our 2024 budget is $2.3 million, and our 2025 requested is at $2.5 million. The main difference in that is that Parks is looking at a potential grant to help fund one of their capital items. Their expenses in 2023 were a little over $2 million. Their 2024 budget is $2.6 million. And their request for 2025 is $3.5 million.
Could you share with us a bit about the capital request for that?
Yep, I will get to that.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Their fund balance, as it stands right now, if the budget were approved as requested, they would end up with 6.14% in their operating reserve. We still have that same policy where we need to have between the 20.5 and 30%. So there are costs that there are expenses that need to be cut from the budget. So it's approximately $500,000. The capital that has been requested in Parks includes the riverbank stabilization. That is the one that Parks feels that we can get a grant for. They're also asking for phase 1 of the cemetery expansion project. This would be a multi-year project. I think it goes over 4 to 5 years, and it is about $350,000 a year for each of those years. So this is not just a one and done. Landscaping on Highway 50 and East 15th Street. Phase 1 of the Centennial Park Master Plan completion, part of that, Phase 1, is in the works now with the relocation of their building. And so they want to have the completion of that. And then tennis court resurfacing and 4 pickleball courts.
Couple of questions. What is the cemetery expansion project? Based on the discussion that we had about the cemetery, it seemed like there were plenty of open plots.
I will say it is one of the projects that we marked as deferrable. It is the expansion that we talked about, building out the rest of the acreage that's at Lakeside Cemetery, just to make it available for future use. I believe we had 400 or 500 spaces available currently. We could obtain more by going through the reclamation process to claim back the unused spaces and free up more space. But this is really a long-term, getting that park or getting the rest of the acreage we own at Lakeside Cemetery ready, building roads, irrigation, lighting, trees, things of that nature.
Thank you. And is the riverbank stabilization in town? Do you know if that's the one that RG Rio has been talking to the Parks Department about?
I don't believe it's the one RG Rio has discussed. This would be in the area of the 4th Street Viaduct. There's a section of riverbank on the Centennial Park side, on the south side of the river, where a lot of spectators come during the Whitewater Fest to watch the rafting events, and it's not been stabilized like much of the rest of Centennial Park. So it would be kind of to finish that area out around the 4th Street Viaduct for the spectators and people that come to watch the events there.
Okay. Do you know, I mean, I think that part of RG Rio's request, and I don't know too much about it, so if anybody else on council does, please chime in. But I believe that they were interested in doing kind of a long-term planning project for the rest of the downtown area. And we're hoping that obviously it could be something that would be done in partnership with the city.
Yeah, it's
Rick is coming forward.
It may be that some of that $150,000 goes to reinforce some of the wave blocks that are there also on the newer play wave, because there's some erosion on the upstream side of the wave blocks. The larger river improvement project, that was a discussion of a GOCO Centennial grant at one point, and it was not considered part of the Centennial grant, or was not considered enough to draw a Centennial grant, so that's still moving forward in the works for funding in the future, as I understand it.
And I think as we move forward with the master planning of the Black Hills site, looking for, is it the Centennial project, the big project from GOCO?
Mm-hmm.
The potential for including some of that into the overall development of the Black Hills site. They were looking for more, GOCO was looking for more collaboration amongst multiple stakeholders for that particular funding stream. So as we go through this planning process for the Black Hills site, I think there's opportunity there for including some of that as part of the overall development of the site.
And we talked about that with GOCO during the Black Hills conversations, and they were saying that it would if you include the Black Hills planning, additional Black Hills work in this initial GOCO grant and work toward more of the Centennial Park and then more of community improvements, it would be more attractive for a Centennial grant. They wanted a much bigger community involvement type of a project than just the river.
No, I certainly understand that. My understanding, though, is that this summer RG Rio had talked to folks within the city about potentially a new play wave downtown, and potentially kind of an overarching river master plan. So, I mean, I think the Centennial grant was a couple of years ago now, so I'm just wondering, do these budget requests reflect those conversations or not? And if not, why not?
I don't recall those discussions, but I don't believe these plans do reflect that. So
Could I ask, are
And-
you done?
Please.
I put my buzzer on, by the way.
John's running this meeting.
Yes, no, wait. Just curiosity, landscaping Highway 50 and East 15th Street, is that, we don't own that right away? What are we doing there?
We maintain the narrow grass strip between Rainbow Drive and Highway 50. It's a very difficult
Oh.
area to maintain. They'd like to take the turf out and landscape that with more of a xeriscape,
Okay,
rock mulch type look.
yeah, you're right. All right, thank you.
And the water storage project that we're talking about, or potentially that'll be under the water department, is that right, Travis? Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to Quality of Life Fund. Our 2023 revenue was $627,000. Our 2024 budget is $8 million, and our 2025 requested is $5 million. There is a lot of fluctuation in the revenue because we have grants that fund the majority of these projects. It's pretty much grant funding that happens with this. So we go ahead and we budget the full amount of the grant revenue in the year that it's awarded, and then as it's expended, then we will actually record that we've received it, and then anything left for the future, if the project is not completed, then we roll the remaining revenue and expenses forward. And so that's why you see such big fluctuations in the revenue.
Just a small point, but so on that, it's 2023 audited, 2024 budget, and it's 2025 projected rather than requested, because we're projecting we're going to receive those funds. Go ahead.
I think it's requested because there are projects in there that have not necessarily, we haven't applied for grants yet. So if we hear from council that there's different priority, then we wouldn't be pursuing those projects.
Gotcha. Okay.
Tammy, anything else, or would you agree with that
No,
assessment?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So on the expense side, I broke it down based on the area that the projects would be under. So our general government, culture and rec, and public works. So the audited expense was $809,000. Our 2024 budget is $10 million, and our requested budget is $8.3 million. We do not maintain a targeted operating reserve for quality of life because there are not any operating expenses in there. So you will see that our fund balance in '23 was $1.8 million. We were anticipating $256,000 in the 2024 budget, and at the end of 2025, we're anticipating $592,000. The projects that have been requested are some projects that you'll see that are in the 2024 budget, and they continue to move forward into 2025. We have some CDOT grants, the RMS Revitalating Main Street Opportunity 1 grant, the CDOT, what does the HSIP stand for? For Central and Orchard, the Parks Maintenance Building, CDOT US 50 lighting, CDOT 3rd Street Connector Project, CDOT 4 Mile Lane Bridge Replacement, Black Hills Energy, West Gateway Park, Community Broadband, the Clock Tower Plaza, and then we also have $1 million in potential grants there, just in case there are grants that come up for projects. We wanted to make sure that we had expenses budgeted and also revenue budgeted for that.
An example of that would be the New Method Laundry, additional cleanup grants from CDPHE. We don't necessarily know what that dollar amount is, but you know, if we received revenue from CDPHE, we could do that project as part of the quality of life program.
Could you differentiate for us which of these were seeking grant funding on? And kind of what the percentages are and
So we have received funding for all of the CDOT projects. You know, we've received award letters. The park maintenance is an award letter. The Black Hills Energy, we've received an award letter. The community broadband is ARPA. Clock Tower Plaza is one where we would be seeking a 50-50 grant from DOLA to complete the Clock Tower Plaza project. And then potential grants is the only other one that's in there right now. That's.
But these are, not all of these are 100% grants. Many of them are matches, for example, the parks maintenance building. So I think just going back to John's question or point on the original slide, it would be really helpful to understand how much of this is grant funding and how much of this is coming from our local taxpayers.
So on the parks maintenance building, initially we had a grant of, I want to say, $750,000. We also had matching funds of $750,000. So that was a 50-50. We are anticipating that we're going to have some construction starting this year. So only half of that project is being carried forward into 2025. So of that $850,000, $375,000 of it would be funded by the grant
Leo, do you
for 2025.
by chance have a rough idea of how much the matches are on the CDOT grants?
Most of them I do. The CDOT RMS Opportunity 1 is the bump out project at 3rd and Main. That is $1 million CDOT grant with a $250,000 local match. The Central and Orchard is a $900,000 CDOT grant with $180,000 of match projected. The maintenance building we talked about, the lighting job, I don't know off the top of my head, I believe, oh, I do have it right here. It's 2 separate grants that total $602,500, and then with $122,500 of local match. 4 Mile Lane Bridge is $156,000, 670 in grants with 39,918 in local match. And I think that's all of, oh, sorry. The 3rd Street Connector is a $540,000 grant with $210,000 in local match. Is that all of them? I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the idea on Clock Tower Plaza is if we didn't get that 50-50 grant from DOLA, we would not be moving forward with that. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, we would need matching funds to move forward. And I believe Brandy has identified at least 2 grants that we could apply for that project.
And at some point, I know we deferred the conversation with when Mr. Maleko came and spoke to us about the idea of swapping the locations of New Method and the Clock Tower Plaza. So at some point before we actually apply for grants, we'll have the opportunity to have that conversation.
We will. I think later this year, we need to talk about putting together design documents for that project.
Great.
So we'll have that discussion at that time.
And we will also rename BHE West Gateway Park at some point.
That is just a placeholder. That is, we will go through the public process and figure out what it's
Wonderful.
going to be called.
What's the CDOT RMS? What does that stand for?
Revitalizing Main Street.
What are we revitalizing?
That's the bump outs project at 3rd and Main, and then the expanded sidewalks that are being paired with a 2A project to reconstruct the pavement. It does all of Main Street and the 1 block of First Street to get down to US 50 from 1st to 4th.
Okay. Okay. I'm not a big, I don't care much for bump outs. You know that, so. I can't imagine council's not crazy about them either, but that's just me. And the CDOT lighting, is that a city's responsibility? I know we talked about it. Why are we doing that?
We received CDOT grants to pay for it. I believe it was a couple months ago, we entered into a contract with Black Hills to do the installation. So Black Hills is working through getting the final material procurements to do the installation. Otherwise, that project is kind of under contract. I can't remember the exact number. I believe it's 23 streetlight locations along US 50 between 15th Street and McKenzie, kind of at all the intersection and curve points along that stretch.
Maybe we're gonna-
Prioritizing some of the areas where we've had some very critical accidents.
Yeah.
Emily, go ahead.
Thanks. Just to add to that, my recollection is when we talked about all of that some months ago, that we decided, as you said, Ryan, to just put some of this first phase of lighting in some of the strategic places, but to continue to evaluate the possibility of adding solar-powered lighting or something, depending on how the solar lights do along the new crosswalks on 50. So if I'm remembering correctly, this is just part of the need, but it's the part that we've already addressed.
Yeah, this is the phase one. Yep, that is correct.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. Oh, and then, oh, your hand's down. Okay. Community broadband. That's us?
This is the visionary project. We've paid for half of it. We paid the other half upon their completion of the ring. So
And then the city owns it.
we own the ring, yes.
Do we get paid for access to that, or is it just a freebie?
Elijah, you want to talk about the co-location facility and the revenue share?
So as part of the original agreement that the city entered with Visionary Broadband, we are receiving a indefeasible right of use to the fiber lines that they're laying to connect all of our facilities, with the right to purchase that fiber at the end of that term. And I don't recall the term off the top of my head. I want to say it was 20 years, I
think it was
believe.
20 years with a purchase price of $1.
Correct. In addition to that agreement that came forward, you'll also notice that there was a co-location facility for Visionary to put that's set outside here, City Hall. They agreed to share revenue with the city for any internet service providers that want to lease fiber connectivity from Visionary, and they're sharing that as part of the co-location agreement that was in that IRU.
We don't know what that share is yet. Is it 50-50 or 70-25? It doesn't matter, I guess, but
Yeah,
it does matter, but we don't know.
There is a percentage that I don't know off the top of my head, but it is unknown at this moment because we don't know how much of their connectivity they're going to lease to other providers. So it's based on market value that they're giving to the other ISPs.
Okay. Okay.
Next, we'll go on to the water fund. The audited revenue shows 8.6 million. Our 2024 budget is 8.4 million, and our 2025 requested is 15.2 million. The big change in that requested revenue is a $6 million loan from, it would be the Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund, the DWRF. I didn't want to say the letters for you, but there also is not a increase built in as far as rate increase. We based our revenue for usage fees based on what our historical consumption has been. Council will be hearing what the results of our rate study are later this year, and then recommendations will come forward from that as what those increases need to be.
What's transfer from other fund? That's income.
Yes, so general fund holds the ARPA funds. And part of the projects in water are being funded through ARPA. The PLC and the PLC SCADA, that is the main project. So as costs are incurred on that, general fund is transferring the money to water.
And the
From the
$6 million,
That's going to
What-
be a loan.
why are we borrowing $6 million?
That's for the water main replacement that goes along with the 2A project on North 9th Street, College Avenue between 9th and 15th, Harding from 5th to 9th, and Griffin from 4th to 9th.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
With regard to the ARPA funds, we don't foresee any issues with regard to having them obligated by December 31st of this year and expended by December of 2026? Like, we're still on track to?
We have them obligated.
We have them
Wonderful.
obligated.
Okay, so we're 100% obligated and we expect that they will all be expended? Wonderful.
Yes.
Thanks.
Correct.
So with our expenses, I have it broke down by the individual departments within water fund, and then also highlighting the transfers and the capital equipment and then the projects. 2023, our audited expenses were 7.5 million. Our budget for 2024 was 9.7 million, and then our requested for 2025 is 17 million. The 2025 transfer is estimated as the same as 2024 until the cost allocation plan is completed. Right now, we do not have that completed plan. Once we have that, then we will modify those numbers. That also does include a portion of the underpayment to general fund for services in prior years based on cost allocation. Because we do reconcile it back to make sure that general fund and the enterprise funds are even, whether it's we owe them or they owe us.
And so the 6 million is all, are the water projects, the 8.37 million, is that all water main replacement?
So I do have the projects listed a couple pages down, but
Okay.
6 million is of the water main replacements. So in the water fund, our ending fund balance was $8 million at the end of 2023. Our unassigned fund balance is 3.9 million. In our designated fund balance, we do have our operating reserve in there, and that is set at, it's a 75-day, so that gets us our 20.5%. So that operating reserve is already shown in the designation. So we still do have, 3.9 that could potentially be used for additional, and that was as of the end of 2023. Our budget at the end of 2024 shows we'd have 1.7 million, and then at the end of 2025, 1.2 million. The capital items we have include our other water main projects. A lot of those we will do in-house, and a few of those we do contract out. Our PLC SCADA upgrade, that is still continuing on. That project has started this year, and we're still doing, it will carry over into next year.
And council will start to see bids coming to council over the next couple of meetings regarding the PLC SCADA.
We also have our lead service line replacement program, some funds budgeted for that. The drinking water revolving fund projects, filter media replacement, the water distribution shop, that will be a phased project. The first year will be essentially design, engineering, and then we also have an emergency generator and then a replacement vehicle in our distribution.
The emergency generator is to run the plant when power is out up there, is that correct? The,
Travis, you might want to come up and answer some other questions too.
well, while you're coming, so I'm sure we've engineered this answer, but why do we need a $700,000 generator for here and only a $50,000 generator for up there?
I can't answer the
Yeah,
$700,000 one, but part of the reason would be that $50,000 is a replacement generator. It's not a brand new one. So a lot of the infrastructure is in place to run the generator to the water treatment plant. So our existing generator is getting to be about 30 years old, and it's just incurring a lot of big maintenance right now as a whole in the radiator, for example, that they don't make anymore, so they'd have to fabricate it. And so I think that radiator alone was like $15,000, so it's just time for a new one. So that might be some of the price difference, but that's all I can speak to.
That would be for a new generator?
Yeah, a new generator to replace the existing.
Yes, thank you.
What does PCL/SCADA upgrade stand for?
PLC is Programmable Logic Controller. SCADA is Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, so I'm sure that cleared that right up.
It's the brains of the water treatment plant. It's the controls that control the actuators and the valves and all those types of things.
That is correct.
You don't have that now?
We do have that now. It's a replacement program.
This is a replacement of what we have?
Correct.
It is. They no longer manufacture the parts for the system that we have in place.
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of those components were put in the mid-90s.
Okay.
Earlier, a comment was made about the storage facility for the water. That is actually budgeted in our raw water fund, and I do not have the raw water fund showing this evening. We are anticipating getting grant funding for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you could see in the revenue slide, there was the $500,000 for grants. That's for two potential grants, one being raw water feasibility for the reservoir. We just really don't know what that is quite yet because we're working with the Army Corps for their portion. That won't be a grant. There may be in-kind contributions in that, but it's not like they're gonna give us a grant to perform all that work. We would just have a potential cost share for that work. So any gaps for that feasibility would then potentially come from CWCB funding, which would be a full grant. So. And then the second one would be a Water Smart grant that we're going to chase for water meters.
Elijah, you want to come up and answer the $700,000 question?
Absolutely. So Travis touched on it a little bit. The $700,000 estimate for the City Hall generator is majorly labor. We're not set up for any type of backup power generation here. So we'd have to have somebody come in and install new equipment, new wiring. We would also be carrying the city's HVAC equipment so that in the event we had to fail over to backup power and run our IT equipment, we had something to cool it, because that's the other consideration. So I believe the majority of the price difference you're seeing is that we have zero infrastructure set up and ready for a generator here at City Hall.
And the grant that you're pursuing, is it a 100% grant or is there a match on it?
It's very early to tell that at the moment. I believe it's a 100% grant, but it's to be determined.
Travis, if there aren't any more questions about the $700,000 generator, could you just speak a little bit about why the $6 million in debt is needed? What will happen if we don't replace the main water lines in 9th College Griffin?
Sure. So For the 2A street reconstruction, those are over some really old cast iron water mains. So the last thing we want is to put a brand-new street over really old water mains that we have a history of leaks happening, and so we would be punching holes right into new asphalt. A strong possibility of doing that if we didn't do water main replacement. So this is a really nice 2A project for the water department because they are over old cast iron water mains, so we would be very happy to get those out of the ground, or replaced, I should say.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next, we will go on to stormwater, and this will be the last fund that we will be discussing this evening. Our audited revenue came in at 2.7 million. Our budgeted for 24, it was 2.7, and in 25, it is 2.7 million as well. At this time, I do have an inflationary increase built into the rates of 3%, and it was based off of the June 2024 impervious area. So those user fees, if we do the 3% inflationary, like I said, that was just a placeholder. That's what we can assume our revenue is going to be. The transfer in is from the general fund, and that is for repayment of excess funds that were transferred to the general fund in the past. We do, like I mentioned earlier, we do reconcile this with our annual cost allocation plan and adjust it. When we determined that there was too much transferred to general fund and from stormwater and not enough from water, we determined we would do it over a 5-year repayment period versus hitting it all at once, because those overpayments did not come all in 1 year. They did come over a period of years.
Could you speak a little bit about the investment income line
Yes.
item?
So the reason I dropped the investment income is because if we go ahead and get our project done, then there will not be as much money sitting in that fund. And so when we allocate our investment income from, our various accounts, we do it based on how much cash is actually in the fund. So that's why I cut it substantially. We could probably increase that, but I just wanted to at least have that, at least you to call it out and ask why it's so different. And it is primarily because we're anticipating being able to spend the rest of our COP and not earning any interest on it. So with the expenses, our 2023 audited came in at 1.3 million. Our 24 budget is 4.1 million, and our 25 requested is 5.9 million. As you see, the main cost drivers in stormwater are our capital expenses, and those have been funded with that COP. What our fund balance would look like at the end of 2023, we had $5 million. Of the unassigned, we had 998,000. Our assigned balance has, you see, decreases substantially from budget, from the 23 audit to the budgeted. And part of that is because the releasing or the spending of the COP, and so those funds we don't have to have them designated anymore or restricted. We do include the next year's lease payments in that, and then it does include the operating reserve. So when you look at what our requested budget is and what our designations are for 2025, we would actually be below our requirement of our reserves at $257,000. That doesn't mean we don't have, it doesn't mean we're spending more money than we have. It just means we're not meeting our fund reserve policy at that point. So either we don't fund our operating reserve at the full 20%, or we don't fund our capital reserve that's in the stormwater fund, or we utilize some of that. So that's just some things to note in that fund. The capital items include hopefully completion of the Rhodes Avenue project of $2.9 million. Purchasing of easements if they become available, a replacement vehicle for our stormwater coordinator. Currently, I think that is still one of our Jeep Liberties. I think that's a 2006 or 2007. And then the College Avenue project. So those are what we have as our budget request for 2025. Thoughts? Comments? Thank you.
Thanks.
But this is all almost theoretical and a wish list for everybody. And so when do we get next step closer down to it? This looks like a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. That's why, typically you don't see the sausage making, and that was the request of council, was to see this part of it. So,
who asked for that? No, just kidding.
Well, there might be a couple people.
There might be a couple of people.
I think,
What point, when in this year, and thank you all for putting up with my budget. Personal budget is a heck of a lot less than this, by the way. But when do we see that next step? Is it in 30 days, 6 weeks?
The city charter requires that the proposed budget is delivered to city council by October 1st, and that would be the next step. We're happy to take any suggestions or direction from you tonight, so that we can help, that can help guide us in the preparation of the proposed budget.
Okay. Emily, go ahead.
Thanks. Just wondered, this is certainly, so far anyway, proposals, requests from a staff perspective. And I just wonder if we need to, I don't know what the right question is, but maybe ask, are there opportunities that we're just not addressing at all because they're not coming through a staff request channel? And I don't know if there's an answer for any of this. Another question would be, is there anything, I guess that's basically what you're asking too, Ryan, is there anything from a mayor council point of view that maybe we're not seeing in these staff requests from that line coming up to us? I don't have an answer for that right now, but I just think it's worth thinking about that. Are we missing anything here in terms of opportunities? Are we missing anything in terms of what we expect to happen in the next year or several years in Canyon City? Or are there any priorities from council that just have not been talked about yet? I don't have answers for any of my questions, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I would, if I guess I had my druthers, I would like to see something come out occasionally every week or, I mean, this, we don't do this every day. And so you need to keep us, I don't even know what I'm saying here, other than this looks like a lot of money. It's almost like it's a big shell game, whether we get the grant or we don't get the grant, it's 700,000 for this. But is there a channel of a better communication maybe? And I mean that not to hurt anybody's feelings, but how do we make these decisions? Or do we just rely on Ryan and then go with it?
In the past, basically, it has been the city administrator and finance director looking at the requests and seeing what needs to be cut in order to fall within our policies. I think we were trying to, or council had requested, give you the opportunity to provide some feedback with which direction you wanted to see us go. Ryan and I do have ideas of what we would fund and what we would not fund out of the requests that you've seen tonight.
I think that would be really helpful to know as a starting point and might give us something to react to. Happy to react to this, and I know that we are looking to cut, essentially 1.5 million or more dollars from this.
And that's just from the general fund.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you. Like, I know that this is a new part of the process for everybody, and that we're, I think, a little taken aback, and I'm sure y'all, it was a lot more work and effort and one more Wednesday night that you get to spend with us answering a lot of questions. So really appreciate the time and effort that went into it. I know from my perspective, it is a lot of money, and it's a lot more money than I think we would ideally want to spend, and I would look forward to hearing what the priorities and recommendations that the finance director and the city administrator have. I am a little bit concerned that we didn't hear much about the city-owned properties along the river and what the plans are for those. Maybe that's in a different part of the budget that we didn't get to tonight. But, from Constantino's to Skyline Steel, I would really love to see forward progress on those. It was great to hear a little bit about the Clark Station property and the Centennial Park Master Plan, but there's a lot more city-owned properties that I know we all really want to see forward progress on. And that quite a bit of that depends on other factors falling into place, but I think we'd like to know what those plans are, and a lot of them do require budget dollars. One other thing that I think would be helpful is understanding in the 2024 budget and the 2025 request columns, there's a lot of duplication because things were asked for in 2024 and they didn't actually get funded. But when you just look at it, it looks like you're asking for a lot more money in 2024 and then a lot more money in 2025, when in reality, a lot of that, they are carryovers because of supply chain challenges and because, it sounds like we've been having our public works director and other directors processing a lot of paperwork. And that can, not to call you out specifically, Leo, but I'm just thinking about the positions and kind of the reorg that you guys led off with. And that can cause delays in getting some of these bigger projects underway and out the gate. So I think in future presentations, it would be really helpful to see like what is actually new money and what is kind of a carry forward from past years because it didn't quite get done.
And as part of our budget hearing, we typically identify which capital projects are carryovers. So that is identified in our public hearing. Tonight, like I said, it was just the raw request. The departments turned in their budget request to us August 5th. And so to turn everything around by this evening was a big challenge.
Yeah, the presentation was literally hot off the press.
Yeah.
Mine did feel a little warm, by the way. Thank you, Leo.
Yeah. So that's why you also do not have some, additional information in there. Plus, we were not real sure what city council was expecting to see tonight. So this was, you know, my best guess of what you'd want to see.
And we
Absolutely.
appreciate that, and it's, it had shock value, of course, but I think with the information here, I was taking notes, we were all aware, we need to convey those, or to some, I guess, to you.
To me.
For questions and to work with you on that, so that I would have a better grasp of it and everybody else. That make sense?
I guess I would go back to Emily's question, which is, was there something in here that you were expecting to see that wasn't in here?
Okay.
You know, that, you know, we know what, you know, from an operating standpoint and from a capital standpoint, what we need. But if there was something that you were expecting that isn't in here, that would be nice to know. You know, as far as the properties, the city-owned properties, I know Rick and Brandy are working on some additional grants for some additional cleanup on the Skyline Steel property. We don't have any budget dollars set aside for the Constantino's property this for 25. So.
I think the one other, from my perspective, and I alluded to it during the parks, is that the upper surf feature has some underwater erosion, and that's hugely popular. I mean, if you look at the Play Wave Cam, people are out there pretty much year-round in wetsuits in the winter, and obviously enjoying it during the summer. So we definitely want to make sure that we are keeping that up as a wonderful free attraction for locals.
Okay, we thank you. It was very informative. I won't sleep tonight, but thank you anyway. No, I'm just kidding. So, but thank you. That was quite an effort and gives us a lot to think about. So, okay, we're done.
Thank you.
Oh,
Mike.
Emily had her.
Oh, I'm
hand up.
sorry, Emily, go.
Just one more quick thought, and I absolutely don't intend this to be asking for additional work on the part of staff at all, but maybe just for council to think about, because these requests come from staff and work their way up through that staff process to our finance director and to our city administrator, maybe kind of putting all of this, overlay it on our comprehensive plan, some of the other planning that has been done in the past, to just take a look at it and make sure that we are meshing these spending goals with what are in some of these long-range plans. And again, I'm not asking for anyone to sit down and match one piece to another, but maybe if we just think about it along those lines, it might help us see, are we missing something that we said was a priority in the past and maybe we've forgotten or whatever. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, we certainly appreciate that, and a lot of these projects do align back to action plan items in the comprehensive plan, specifically the Black Hills property, the Clock Tower Plaza project. There's a lot that do tie back, and we do take that into consideration when we're prioritizing budget requests. So thank you
Sounds
for
good.
bringing that up.
Thanks.
Okay. No, we really are done, right? Thanks again. Thank you.